And welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. We've got our producer-engineer, Todd Robbins, in the house. We've got our color analyst. We'll let the cheering for Todd in. Our color analyst, Tyler Watts, in the building. And I'm Roger Hoover, and it's great to be with you for the next hour talking about Alabama's first win of the season. Tyler, roll Tide.
Hey, it feels a lot better after last weekend's performance to be here celebrating. Happy birthday, whoever's birthday it is. All right.
Lots of birthdays. Great to celebrate. And again, celebrating a win for the Crimson Tide. 73-0 was the final score for Alabama against ULM on Saturday. And Tyler, we spent most of the Monday night hour last week just talking about a response from Alabama after the disappointing loss against Florida State and disappointing effort at times. Certainly saw effort and energy on Saturday.
Yes, we did. Everything, all the boxes, it seems like, that we had developed over the course of the week, and especially leading up through the broadcast in preparation for the game. Need to do this, need to do this, and you want to see this. They checked every single one of them. The intensity was there, and I think what was most impressive is there was no let-up throughout the entire four quarters, regardless of what the score was. That momentum, that energy was on the sideline. The guys were into the game. They were focused, and that defense was hell-bent on getting that shutout, regardless of who was in there, and they were able to secure that, which was really nice to see.
Yeah, 0 points for the Warhawks. For the Crimson Tide, 73 points, 11 drives, all scoring drives for Alabama in this ballgame. And starting quarterback Ty Simpson got Alabama started the right way.
About as sharp as you could be. Now, granted, this is kind of what I've been talking about all day long, is the fact that from a talent standpoint, La Monroe, Louisiana, or ULM, was not on par with Alabama. But you can't control that. What you can control, though, is dominating your opponent, regardless of how talented or lack of talent that they potentially might have. And, you know, the mental focus and concentration needed to be there. And that's the part. They took the physical and the mental, combined them together. And when you do that, you see what this team is capable of doing. Now, against better competition, which we will see this week, you're going to have to step it up a little bit more and keep that. It's going to be a closer game. However, you have the building blocks as something that you can continue to try to improve on, because everything is still in front of you. I mean, it is still wide open. Every opportunity is still in front of you. You took the right step in the right direction. Now you got to put two together.
73-0 was the final score on Saturday at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. We're going to talk all about that game, plus what's going on around college football in the SEC, and really looking ahead to Saturday morning, Alabama against Wisconsin, 11 a.m. the start time. Our radio coverage will begin at 8 o'clock all across the network for the Crimson Tide and the Badgers. We invite your questions as well. Follow us on social media, especially on Twitter or X at UA_CTSN. That's where you can ask all of your questions on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line, again, at UA_CTSN. We're with you for the next hour from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is Crimson Tide Rewind, and this is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
1st and 10, Young the single set back to the right of Simpson, operating from the pistol. 3 wideouts to the right side of the formation. Simpson gets the snap, looking downfield across the middle, actually left side. Bernard catches it at the 10 and whoops into the end zone for an Alabama touchdown.
I want to remind you, you can keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. That was the first touchdown for Jeremy Bernard. 2 touchdowns in the ball game for Jeremy. 3 catches, 67 yards, and Tyler, he should have had one more.
Yes, he should have a long touchdown, but he absolutely was the worst pass interference call ever, where the dude just got his feet tangled up and got in his way and he bulldozed him. You like to see that out of your wide receivers, but heck of an athlete there in Jeremy Bernard. I'm glad to see that he was rewarded for his efforts the previous week and what he did when the ball was thrown to him, as well as what he did when the ball wasn't thrown to him in the run game, and how he kind of fits into the entire scheme of what they do offensively. He's a guy that you really enjoy to pull for because of the way that he plays so hard and how selfless he is in creating plays for other players. So to see him and how creative they were in getting him the ball, whether it was downfield or just off the little toss sweeps inside the pocket, the misdirections, I enjoyed watching that. And he's a dude that you got to get the ball in his hands because he's such a good athlete. He can make guys miss. And he's an explosive player. And what he does also is he raises, by setting an example, he raises the performance and the expectations of everybody else in that room. And you can see some of the younger guys really latching on and trying to emulate their game after what they say Jeremy Bernard do on a daily basis.
Yeah, he was one of the players really praised for his efforts against Florida State. And then he was also a very vocal leader on this team, especially with the media last week. Media availabilities went on Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer show as well. And it's nice to see somebody like that that's that out in front of the public talking about what this football team can do, really back it up with his play.
So that's good for the fan base because you want to pull for those type of guys. But it's also great in the locker room because players listen to people who are putting forth the effort and they're seeing what they're doing. They respect that. And when you have a vocal leader who is performing on the field, that sets the tone, and that's extremely important. Every position needs to have one or two of those guys, and there's no limit as to how many you can have because it elevates everybody's play.
And speaking of leaders, Tim Keenan III, the clip has gone around on social media. They showed it on the SEC Network Saturday night, right before kickoff. Of course, it was good to have TK just back on the sidelines. Didn't make the trip to Tallahassee for the first game as he's working his way back from injury, hyping up Coach DeBoer. And Coach DeBoer talked about that at his press conference today, said, man, he does it all the time. He almost didn't remember it because that's just who Tim Keenan is.
Well, if you ever have a chance to go to a practice, there are a couple vocal guys who will get out in the middle, and they're very instrumental in making sure that the energy is there on a daily basis. And Tim Keenan has kind of stepped into that role. I thought that you were going to tell me, however, with all the pyrotechnics and everything that we now have coming out, that he's like, man, when I make it to WWE, this is what it's going to be like.
You can see him one day, right?
I wouldn't get in the ring with him. That's a big old dude right there. It's good to see him on there, though. You need those seniors who have been through everything that they have. They've won. They know what the expectation is. They know how to prepare. They know how to get their body right. They know how to mentally be ready to go on a daily basis. And you know that's that senior leadership who has hung around for so long, who knows what it takes to win. And when they're making an impact, even when they're not playing, that's huge.
It really is, and especially the way they continued impacting the game, not just with how well Alabama was able to play in the first half, build up that large lead, but then you really get to empty out the depth chart and the roster in the second half, and the competitiveness stayed there all throughout that final whistle.
It did not stop. I mean, regardless of who was in the game, so many players, their first or second touch, going for touchdowns. Yeah, they did not take their foot off the pedal, so to speak, and there were a lot of guys who will never have an opportunity to probably get back out on the field who were impact players on Saturday. Great
to see it. We're going to talk all about the quarterback play from Alabama when we return as we visit with former Crimson Tide quarterback Tyler Watts. This is Crimson Tide Rewind. We're live from Baumhower's Victory Grille here in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Alabama will have an empty set. They'll go a little misdirection on the underhand. Flip Bernard. 10. Bernard to the edge. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown. Jeremy Bernard, a 16-yard TD. His second of the night. And Alabama has a 13-0 lead here in the opening quarter.
J&J Apparel, your trusted source for Bama gear. New Alabama hats, T-shirts, and polos arriving daily. Visit online at jnjapparel.net or shop their retail store at 1926 University Boulevard in downtown Tuscaloosa. RTR with J&J. Again, the Crimson Tide winners 73-0 over ULM on Saturday. And Tyler Watts, we got to see three quarterbacks play for the Crimson Tide. Mentioned the great start to the game for Ty Simpson, but then on the fifth drive, we got to see Austin Mack for the first time this season.
So he comes in and immediately completes his first three passes. He had great command of the offense, was distributing the ball, put them in the right run checks. He played well, and he deserved an opportunity to get out there early on in that game when, you had a lead. You didn't know if you're going to have how big a lead you were going to have, but when everything's still going early on, you got good fight out of your opponent. You want to see what your backup's got in him, because we've seen over the last several years there are times when injuries happen and your starter goes down. You need to make sure that you're giving meaningful reps in game time situations so that if that backup, Austin Mack or whomever it is thrown into the fire, that they're ready to go. They've had some bullets shot at them a little bit, and they know how to handle that situation.
And not just game reps as well, but how beneficial is it to play with the starting offense, all the ones around him? How much of a difference does that make for him?
It's big from the standpoint of you want to make sure that you're protecting, you're able to run the offense. Sometimes when you get some of the younger guys in who don't have that game time experience either, things can get a little sloppy. Assignments aren't necessarily where they need to be. They're not met. Therefore, you end up running for your life or just throwing the ball away, and that's not what you want to see. You want an opportunity to really go out there and compete and run the offense the way it was intended and drawn up. And by putting all your starters out there, that's the best way to guarantee you're going to have the most success.
And Austin came in. It was already a 28-0 lead for Alabama. And again, this was part of the plan that Coach DeBoer, Coach Grubb had going into the week. They mentioned in the offensive meetings, I believe, even going back to Monday. So for Ty Simpson to get to see this, again, it's no indication on how he's playing or anything like that. Again, this was all scripted. This was all part of the plan.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's not a, hey, we don't believe in you, Ty. It's, we're just doing this to make us a better football team. And the competition should never stop. Doesn't mean that it has to be ongoing in games. I think that you do earn the right to play in practice. However, having that depth with the experience, game time experience, is so important.
It really is. And go back to Ty for just a minute. He got to run the offense, and again, a much more balanced approach by Alabama in this game. We talked about it before. Florida State game, that first drive, you saw a lot of balance, but once Alabama was trailing, didn't see as much balance in the second half. What was it like getting to see Ty run the offense with, again, the ideal conditions, I guess you could say, trying to run this Crimson Tide team?
Even on the first possession, the opening drive, you get the ball, and there was 3 passes on that drive, and then they ran it every other play afterwards. And I said, jokingly, pop passes don't count. They do count for passes. However, that's just a handoff. But they were committed to running the football, and it wasn't just power right up the middle. They were running their offense, off tackle, counters, pulling guys around, trying to create things offensively, and you didn't have any miscues up front, which was important. But they want to be a balanced offense. The play action comes off of that. You can really incorporate your wide receivers and have better matchups downfield because you're sucking in linebackers, creating more one-on-one opportunities, a clear picture in the secondary for both your quarterback and your receivers to understand where the ball needs to go. So it was a great start for them, just a command of getting rid of the football quick. Everything was on time. Decisions were made, and then they were executed immediately. There was no hesitation that you saw from any of the quarterbacks, really. They saw what they saw, they pulled the trigger, and they let it fly. And that's what you need, that confidence. That builds that confidence of trusting your eyes.
And we also know Ty Simpson can run, and he picks up an 8-yard rushing touchdown as well.
I think he had another one that was called back, another big gain that was called back as well. So, yeah, I mean, he possesses the ability to, and that'll be important moving forward when things break down and you really get depth out of your backers, of being able to take advantage and close that cushion and pick up positive yardage, always keeping the chains moving forward. It's not necessarily what you want to center your offense around. However, having that in your back pocket, there's going to be times when that's extremely important in your ability to convert first downs.
So good to see that from Crimson Tide. Starting quarterback Ty Simpson. Again, Austin Mack was able to play, was 8 for 10 passing, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. What did you like the most when he was on the field?
Just, once again, the command of feeling comfortable, looking comfortable out there, I should say. He knew exactly where he wanted to go. He read the defense. He checked it down. He pushed it down the field. He threw some really pretty balls. But it's just the execution and the decision making. You know, there's 2 things to play in quarterback that you get graded on. Obviously, you want to have the outcome be what it needs to be. But even when incomplete passes happen, did you make the right decision? Did you put the ball where you should have based on what the defense gave you? And as far as I could tell, he didn't force anything. Went through his progressions. He knew where the ball needed to go, and he delivered it.
Certainly did. Crimson Tide quarterbacks combining 29 of 33, 371 yards, and 7 touchdowns. We'll talk about the guy that added 2 more touchdowns in the second half when we come back in a moment, Keelan Russell. But Tide fans, if you're joining us here in Tuscaloosa coming up this weekend for the Wisconsin game, make sure you join us at Vector Security Champions Lane. It is the best pregame fan fest in the country. Our live radio broadcast will get things started 3 hours before kickoff, followed by a free pregame concert featuring Reagan Strange from NBC's The Voice. We'll also have the largest outdoor LED screens in Tuscaloosa, meet and greets with Alabama softball players, food trucks, and of course ice-cold beer in Legends Lounge, where there is never a cover charge. Visit championslane.com each week for more details. We're continuing to rewind a 73-0 win for Alabama against ULM. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
2 of them offset to the right side with Young the single setback. Again, under center will be the Bama quarterback who hands it off, and Young walks left side zone for the third Bama touchdown of the opening quarter.
Touchdown Alabama. We were saying that a lot on Saturday. Hey, if you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind, submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. AL.com, Alabama's largest news site, daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. Roger Hoover, Tyler Watts talking quarterbacks, and now we get to talk about, for the first time on this show, Keelan Russell, the freshman from Duncanville, Texas, makes his Crimson Tide debut. And Tyler, he was 4 of 6 passing, 65 yards, 2 touchdowns. What'd you think of number 12?
He looked good, but I've seen him in practice, and he looked the exact same. Once again, throws a really pretty ball, tight spiral, quick release. Decision-making was where it needed to be. And how about the crowd going nuts when he came in the game? They really wanted to get an opportunity to see what he could do, and he didn't disappoint. And I loved how even late on, a lot of times you don't see coaches fearful of running up the score, of embarrassing their opponent. But you got to get your young guys work. You got to get your young guys work, and especially some of the talented ones. Give them an opportunity to go in there and see what they can do. So still run the offense, and I don't think anybody was offended by it because it was no reflection on ULM. It was all about our players and getting them better. But once again, I mean, he throws such a pretty ball, and you can see how much upside he has and why he was so highly touted coming out of high school.
Really good debut for Keelan Russell with the Crimson Tide, and somebody that was maybe third in the mix, at least coming off the bench in the Florida State game, but then was first off the bench from the running back room. Kevin Riley, the native of Tuscaloosa, Northport, went to Tuscaloosa County High School. First running back we saw, and once again ran the ball hard and effectively. He
caught our eye in the second half versus Florida State, and he was rewarded for it. He should have been. He was the first running back out there. He toted the rock beautifully, runs the ball hard between the tackles. He's doing a good job in pass pro, getting out in space, catching the ball. So when Jan Miller does come back, you're going to have 2 really good running backs that you can count on to pound the ball up the middle. They run hard, low pad level. Yeah, however, they're both shifty as well and can avoid contact and create an extra yard or 2, which is important.
Really is. Kevin Riley averaged 6 yards per carry for the Crimson Tide on Saturday. 11 carries for 69 yards total. If not for A.K. Deere, we may talk about him just a bit, but he would have been the top rusher for the Crimson Tide. But again, regardless of who was in the backfield, it ran the ball effectively against ULM.
It was, and you knew you had some depth coming into the season. We saw Dre Washington, a couple other guys as well. So obviously we knew we had people. And it was unfortunate that we lost Jan Miller, but, man, what a blessing it is to have so many guys that you can count on to go in there and continue to perform.
Again, the Crimson Tide offense really impressive. 73 points in this ball game against ULM, but equally impressive the 0 from this Crimson Tide defense. We'll talk more about them when we return. We're hanging with you tonight from Baumhower's Victory Grille. It is your big game headquarters this fall for the entire 2025 football season. Baumhower's has been voted best wings in Alabama and the #1 sports-themed restaurant in the state. They're also featuring their fan favorites this fall that include the Ragin' Cajun Gooey Fries, the Go Fish, the Gooey Char-Grilled Chicken Sandwich, and their scratch-made Cabo Wabo Tequila Margaritas. All you football fans, kick off your season in legendary fashion and make Baumhower's Victory Grille your big game headquarters all season long. Back with more Crimson Tide Rewind next. This is Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Everybody bunched in tight. Now one goes left in Scott. Simpson keeps it himself. Keeps it inside the 5. Keeps it into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama.
If you'd like to join us on the show this evening, submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com. It's Alabama's largest news site with daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. Alabama 73, ULM nothing. Impressive shutout by the defense, really limiting what ULM could do. And again, the Warhawks seemed a little limited as well, just even with the game plan. Didn't go down the field too much in this ball game, throwing the football, but Alabama's defense was ready for the challenge.
Yeah, they were very one-dimensional. They really didn't have the ability to have enough time to push the ball down the field, nor schematically. That's not what they do. They're a run football team. They want to stretch you out, try to find some cutback lanes. And that defensive front played as hard as I've seen them play in a long time. And I know that they were overmatching that offensive line. However, they still got after it. London Smith came in. I thought that he played extremely well. I think he had 1 or 2 tackles on the day. But he was a huge reason that the middle of that field did not move at all. And what that did was it allowed James Smith and some other guys to really have impactful day. James Smith played about as well as I've seen him in a long time from the backside, pursuing, making sure that he was taking away that cutback lane. And there was a time or two where he even ran down the running back because there was nowhere to go play side.
No, it certainly wasn't. Then Deontay Lawson certainly involved in everything once again, still leads Alabama in tackles, had 4 on the day, 1 tackle for a loss, and again seemed more like himself as he continues working his way back from the ACL injury.
And we talked about it in pregame. What we wanted to see after watching the film against Florida State was both linebackers attacking the line, getting downhill as quickly as possible once they recognized what was coming, and they did it all day. Both he and Justin Jefferson and some other guys that had an opportunity to get in there, they were downhill attacking those holes as they were opening them up. And so you saw a lot of 1-yard gains, no gains, 2-yard gains. And then the tackles, contact was made, and there wasn't much yards gained after contact. That was big.
And then the energy and the effort we wanted to see coming off the FSU game, got it.
Absolutely, and that was important. You have to have fun playing defense. It's an emotional side of the ball. And the more emotional you are, sometimes the better. I mean, you got to lock in, you got to do your job, but it's good to have excitement. When you make a play, man, get fired up and start hitting each other on the helmet. That breeds success moving forward. It brings energy, and that stuff is contagious.
It really is. ULM in this ball game really limited, 148 yards total offense, 55 through the air. That was under 50 through most of the ball game, 93 rushing yards as well. And then again, like we talked about with the offense, some young guys get their opportunity on defense for the first time. Did not disappoint. We've seen a little bit of Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. Last year, especially on special teams. A little bit more of him this ball game. Unfortunately, made such a great hit, the targeting call. He will be unavailable for the first half against Wisconsin, but still, he brought the kind of toughness you expect to see from somebody with
aggressive.
a name.
He was extreme. Oh, his dad wouldn't hit like that. Come on, everybody knows that.
It was legal when he played.
He was extremely aggressive, though. Had 4 tackles on the day, and it was unfortunate about the targeting. He's going hard. It happens, but you have to be aware of where you make contact with a defenseless receiver. So, unfortunately, we won't have him for the first half versus Wisconsin. But I still think that's important for other players to see that effort out of a younger guy and go, all right, once again, just like Jeremy Bernard last week, this is what the coaches can kind of circle and highlight and go, this is how I need all y'all to play. That's how you need everybody on the defense side to play. Reckless abandonment. That's what Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. did.
And you mentioned ULM, a little bit one-dimensional in that ball game, but the secondary just allowed the wide receivers no room, it seemed like, in that ball game.
The only success they had, it seemed, were on broken plays where plays would extend 5-6 seconds as quarterbacks were scrambling around trying to find people. And we lost a guy or two in coverage. I guess that's going to happen every once in a while. You don't want it to, but it does happen. But, yeah, the short game, they had a couple of little passes, but the quarterback wasn't great. They couldn't get him the ball, and they couldn't get open.
Couldn't get open. So the Crimson Tide pick up a shutout victory. 73-0 was the final score. As we continue kind of looking at all areas of the game for the Crimson Tide. And special teams saw some really good things there, except, I guess, for the punting game. No punts for Alabama in this ball game.
No punts, but Talty had 2 made field goals, only 1 counted.
And then there were more kickoffs. I got more people.
You're not going to give any more on that. You remember he had a penalty.
That's right.
Made it from 51 or something, or 52, and then they said, no, we got the spot wrong. So you had to bunch it up, push it up a yard, and he still drilled it. But that's good. And we talked about it during the broadcast about, hey, where's your focus? Where's your focus? Last kick was made. You go back to, all right, just hit your spot, kick the ball through the uprights. Ain't that hard.
It's not. 73-0 the final score. Crimson Tide picking up the win against ULM on Saturday at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So, again, a really impressive victory for the Crimson Tide. And now, Tyler, the 24-hour rule has to come into effect. It felt terrible after the Florida State game. You feel great against ULM. Now it's time to refocus, get ready for a new opponent this week. Yeah,
I mean, that's what they were expecting all season long. You came out of the gates a little sluggish, a little slow. You weren't pleased with your performance. You put together a nice performance, nice job versus ULM, but you have to back it up. You have to have a great week of practice, and it started today out there on the practice field, getting prepared for your next opponent because last week's behind you. It's all about Wisconsin getting 2 wins on the season, second game here at home. You got to back it up, and then eventually we got to take that success on the road.
Certainly do. Road trip to Athens, Georgia looming at the end of the month. But next up, the Wisconsin Badgers. We'll talk more about them. We'll talk more SEC football when we return as well. This is Crimson Tide Rewind, and this is Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Russell with time, looks, fires, corner of the end zone, touchdown Alabama. M.J. Sherwin on the receiving end of his first touchdown grab. 20 yards, Keelan Russell, another perfect strike, and the Tide gets over the 60-point mark.
Roll Tide, M.J. Sherwin and Keelan Russell connecting on that touchdown for Alabama. Part of our fun on Saturday, 73-0, the final score against ULM. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Crimson Tide get the win, 73 points. Certainly impressive, Tyler, as we take a look at SEC scores from over the weekend. First of all, the third-ranked LSU Tigers, they were at home, 23-7, the final score against Louisiana Tech. And you know how tricky a game that can be in-state school, but also follow the emotion just winning on the road the week before.
The letdown. You know, LSU and Chip Kelly finally able to Brian Kelly, thank you. Chip Kelly's not there. Brian Kelly.
Some fans may like that.
Finally, he'd have won more of his openers, but finally getting that opening weekend win. That was a huge emotional, I guess, burden off of their shoulders. But you got to be able to follow it up. And from all indications, didn't necessarily look great. Didn't do anything bad. But when you're playing an opponent at that level, you ought to be able to walk the floor with them, and they didn't.
Well, and Georgia picks up the win 28-6 over Austin Peay. A couple of wins for the Bulldogs at home in Athens against Marshall and now against Austin Peay. But now a formidable opponent coming up this week, their SEC opener at Tennessee.
Up at Tennessee, and this is one where Kirby Smart has had Tennessee's number over the year. That defense really knows how to lock down Josh Heupel's offense and limit their ability. Of course, Tennessee looking awfully good right now, putting up a lot of points with the trade with UCLA and Joey Aguilar. And they've done well, a whole lot better than UCLA. So, you know, I mean, this ought to be a good contest of Georgia wants to run the ball. They want to control the clock. They want to play good defense. Tennessee wants to score 40 points. So see how that one comes out, man. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, Tennessee scored 72 points on Saturday against East Tennessee State. And that'll be the matchup again coming up on Saturday. Tennessee coming up against Georgia. The other UT, Texas, they were able to pick up a 38-7 win against San Jose State. That was one game I actually got to watch a lot of, at least the first half, before making the trip to Tuscaloosa, seeing Arch Manning get a little more on track.
Had a couple of touchdown throws on the game. And look there. I mean, gave up 7 points again. That Texas defense is legit. I think that they're the real deal. They're always going to be in the game every single week.
And then a huge story that was going on at the same time. We were playing a couple of them, actually, but we'll start in Starkville, Mississippi State. A last-minute touchdown. Winners against Arizona State, and they rushed the field.
They're back, baby. Bring the cowbell back. What a big win, though, for that coaching staff and that program. They've been down for so long, and to have, you know, a playoff team last year come into your stadium and you absolutely own them. What were they up 17-0 before Arizona State came back, and then to find a way to force a field goal inside the 5-yard line. They're only down by 3, and then to get that long touchdown. I mean, I was watching some highlights of that film, and that quarterback they have at State, he gets rid of the ball so quick, and he can sling it. He's got a strong arm, and that's an explosive offense. And so State's another team. You better not sleep on them.
Better not sleep on them or the Oklahoma Sooners with John Mateer. That offense looks very different than what we saw last year when we were in North.
They've always played great defense, and now they have something comparable on the offensive side. However, one little thing, he is a majority of their offense. They still struggle to run the football. They rely so much on his ability to run. I think he had 19 carries. Everybody else only had 21. But, man, they did a good job, and that's a big win for Oklahoma.
Big win for Oklahoma against Michigan. For the Florida Gators, a tough loss at home against South Florida. Again, we know just how tough South Florida can be with the matchups the last couple of years, but Alex Golesh, a huge victory, 18-16 in the Swamp.
High risk, high reward style of defense that USF plays, man. And sometimes they get after you, but you can move the ball on them. But I told somebody I was watching the game with up in the press box, you get inside the 20-yard line, it gets tough to run against that defense. And Florida struggled, had to settle for way too many field goals. Special teams ended up costing them with the safety. And that defense, you know, once again, mental mistakes. It always comes down to mental mistakes and guys getting ejected, which is ridiculous.
Well, especially ahead of the SEC opener now that's coming up. Florida against LSU, I mean, looms even larger coming off this loss, right?
Yeah, not being able to keep your composure, though, that reflects poorly on the entire locker room.
And then one other game I want to touch on, Ole Miss winning at Kentucky, getting a little bit of revenge for what happened last year in Oxford. Yeah, and that loss kept Ole Miss out of the college football playoff, and maybe wasn't the prettiest game that Lane Kiffin would like to have offensively, but still got it done.
Just enough. And Kentucky had 2 scoring opportunities, had to go for it on 4th down on both drives, walked away with no points. Ole Miss was able to run the ball effectively in the 4th quarter. Big win for Lane Kiffin.
Certainly was. Huge win for the Crimson Tide, 73-0 the final score from this past Saturday. When we come back, we'll talk more about what's coming up this Saturday, Alabama against Wisconsin. This is Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Turgwin in motion. The handoff goes right side Deere. Midfield, running room 40, 35, 30. Deere, foot race, wins it. Touchdown, Alabama. 56 yards. A.K. Deere putting Alabama over the 70-point mark with 1:02 to go.
Listening to Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Chris Stewart just there on the call of A.K. Deere's touchdown run, and got to learn a lot about A.K. Deere hosting Alabama football's signing day show this past December, and it was great to see him turn on the Jets like he did against ULM.
That's cool, and that was the point of the game also. You're trying to run the clock off, just running off tackle. But, man, he made a couple guys miss and then got in the open field and outran a defender. Hey, tip your hat to A.K. Deere. I mean, he showed some speed right there.
Certainly did. So the Crimson Tide winners 73-0 over ULM. Now Alabama 1-1 on the season and ready to go on Saturday against the Wisconsin Badgers. The Badgers off to a 2-0 start. Tyler, they have stayed at home so far in Madison to begin the year. 17-0, a win against Miami of Ohio. And then I know you were watching some of their highlights against Middle Tennessee. 42-10 ended up being the final score.
Yeah, a game that was 14-10, though, at halftime. And Middle Tennessee State had some opportunities to put more points on the board, but got shut down on a couple of 4th down conversions. Look, Wisconsin probably is a better team than what they were last year. They've kind of gone back to that old school Wisconsin style of playing offense. They want to control the line of scrimmage, control the clock, run the football, try to be in a manageable 3rd down situation. But I wasn't very impressed, just to be completely honest. And they've got some weapons. They're aggressive on the defense, but they got burned a couple of times on some long passes. So hopefully our receivers will have some one-on-one opportunities where they can really go up and make some plays and push the ball down the field. But every game like this comes down to, how do you play in the trenches? How do you play offensive line, defensive line? Are you the most aggressive? You have low pad level? Are you getting after it? Are you doing a good job in run support? Is your gap fitness where it needs to be? You just don't want any mental busts that give yourself an opportunity to play. But this is a good contest. It's going to be somewhere probably in between Florida State and what we saw last week versus La Monroe as far as a talent level. So this is a good test for Alabama. Can you put 2 weeks together? That's what you're trying to accomplish now.
So you mentioned Wisconsin trying to run the football a little bit more. It comes down to in the trenches. Do they have the personnel really on that offensive line?
They got some big guys.
Style of play?
Yeah, they got some big guys, and they're going to be doing a lot of pulling. They got 2 big tight ends that they like to utilize in both run blocking as well as they'll get them down the seams and do some things with them in the passing game. But this is a game that Alabama dominated last year, and of course there is no carryover. However, a lot of the same people are there, and we owned them. So we just got to make sure. And I think we're a better football team this year than we were last year. So the energy has to be there in the fans. It's 11 o'clock kick. I know it's early, but the place has to be energetic. Players feed off of that. They'll provide some of it, but we need to provide the remainder.
Certainly do. And we've talked about it. I believe we talked about it on Saturday, and I'm sure it'll be a topic of conversation again. That early start, how much of a difference does it really make for the players, especially this group now that's used to practicing at 9 in the morning every day?
We hated them. I hated getting up that early.
Because you were practicing in the afternoon.
Because we practiced in the heat of the afternoon. Now, granted, if it was 105 degrees, we were perfectly comfortable because we were used to it. But those 11 o'clock kicks were a little bit of a challenge to get your motor going early on. And these guys are much more acclimated to that because of their clock. And, yeah, I think that we're going to be fine. I think the biggest thing, like I said, is just the atmosphere of the stadium. And that is something that it takes 100,000 people controlling that all have to buy in and be there because the players will be ready to play.
We look forward to it. It's Alabama and Wisconsin coming up on Saturday. Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Again, the start time is going to be 11 a.m. We will hit the radio at 8 a.m. from Vector Security, Champions Lane. We'll be back with one final segment coming up of Crimson Tide Rewind as we're with you live from Crimson Tide Rewind, Baumhower's Victory Grille here in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama? Brought to you by Coors Light. Crimson Tide fans, choose to chill with an ice-cold Coors Light. Well, next up, as we've been talking about, it's Alabama against Wisconsin, third game of the season. And again, Tyler, a tough loss against Florida State, backed it up, an impressive showing, 73-0 against ULM, and now it's time for the Badgers.
Move on to a Big Ten opponent, and this is a big one. You have an opportunity to kind of redeem yourself against an out-of-conference opponent. And Wisconsin brings a name, and it'll be a good challenge for Alabama. Can they follow up the success they had last week, focus and concentration and performance? Can they follow it up and put the same product on the field once again? I think a lot is going to be learned this week, mentally and physically, by this football team. And hopefully we stay healthy, but we want to see a great performance as they go into the off week and get geared up for SEC play.
Because SEC play just around the corner, the open date coming up on September 20th, and then at Georgia to round out the month of September. SEC play looming after that, and again, only one non-conference game still left on the schedule after this week. That'll be Eastern Illinois all the way in November. So this is really when Alabama gets in the meat of its schedule. And
it's going to be warm too. So find out how good your conditioning is. I saw where it was going to be kind of hot. So drink your water, baby.
That's right, and get ready for Saturday. Get
ready for it.
Again, the fan atmosphere is so good to be back. Saban Field the other night, and again, you just hope the fans can bring that similar type energy for a game like this when you're saying players feed off energy, especially early in the morning.
People don't believe me, but it's important, and when they walk out for warm-ups, they feel the energy in the air. They read the room. They absorb it, and it means something to them. Now, granted, they got to lock in to what they're doing and kind of zone everything else that's going on out. However, that's important, especially when big plays are made. They can get excited and really embrace that moment with the fan base. It means a lot to them. So we need to make sure that we're doing our part, and because we have high expectations for those players, but we got to bring our part too.
We certainly do. So I know you've got a lot of film study coming up, getting good to go on that Wisconsin offense and defense and special teams. We can't wait to Saturday. Again, we're going to be with you guys live from Vector Security, Champions Lane. We'll be outside for the first hour of our pregame coverage starting at 8 a.m. So we look forward to that, Tyler, and look forward to hopefully next Monday talking about a Crimson Tide win.
That's going to be great. I look forward to it.
Well, that's Tyler Watts. I'm Roger Hoover. Again, a huge week coming up for us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. I want to remind you that we do have Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR, our streaming talk show coming up Tuesday and Thursday at 2 o'clock on all of our social media platforms at UA_CTSN. Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show, Wednesday night, 6 p.m. from Baumhower's in Tuscaloosa. So we look forward to that coming up. And then, of course, our radio coverage starting at 8 a.m. on Saturday, Alabama against Wisconsin, Game 3 of the season. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, you can always catch it on demand on our Alabama Insider podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It's going to do it for tonight's edition of Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Huge thank you back to our studios, Jerry Kelly producing this, Todd Robbins, our engineer. The loudest cheers of the night always for Todd Robbins, as well as for our color analyst on the broadcast, Tyler Watts. This has been Roger Hoover again. Thanks for listening. Roll Tide, and we will see you on Saturday. Roll Tide, everyone.